Thank you so much. That song I wrote a number of years ago, actually for when I was the music director at Unity of Wimberley, Texas, which is outside of Austin, Texas. And the senior minister at the time was doing a series on the shady ladies of the Bible. That was the talk, the shady ladies of the Bible, yes. And so the original character in that song was actually a woman because it was about Jezebel. But the bad name, the bad rap that Jezebel gets. But I have so much fun doing that song because what it fits around in our talk today around anger and the power of anger. Anger can be a powerful force for change. Is that when we when we follow the guidance within, when we pay attention to our emotions, anger being one of them, we can preempt those bad seeds. Hello. What a joy you are. Oh my. We can preempt those bad seeds from ever coming through the front door in the first place. They show up on the doorstep. That's the metaphor for anything, and we can see it coming. So we're talking about this today when the lead-in and the marketing thing that goes out to you all. And I said, from neuroscience and modern mental health and to wellness modalities and our new thought, ancient wisdom teachings of spiritual consciousness, we now know, we understand that all of our emotions, all of them are inherent, all of them are good, all of them are necessary. So anger tends to be the one, especially if you're a woman, that gets the bad rap as you're not supposed to feel that. You're not supposed to express it. You're not being a good girl or a nice person if you show anger in any way, shape, or form. Right? Fortunately, we know how toxic it can be to hold it in. We know that now. There is a study that I was doing some research a while back, way prior to this talk, about autoimmune disorders and its relationship to unexpressed anger, unexpressed grief, the powerful feelings. That 80% of people who have autoimmune disorders are women. If you start to put some things into context around the link to that, is the suppression of feelings, the double standard that we live in often about what we're supposed to be and not supposed to be, but particularly around the expression of anger and grief. So we're going to talk about transforming that, moving it into where anger can be a very powerful, positive force for change in our own lives and collectively, of course. The title of my talk today that I gave to you all was Hell Hath No Fury. How many of you have heard that old saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned? There you go. Do you know where it came from? Okay. A lot of times it gets attributed to Shakespeare, but it did not come from Shakespeare. And a lot of times now people are saying it's coming from the Bible. It is not in either of those places. But it did come from a playwright in the 1600s named William Cosgrave from a tragedy play. They used to write tragedies and comedies. You know, you didn't get the whole thing in one play. It was like the Greek tragedy. And it was called The Mourning Bride, M-O-U-R-I-N-I-G. Thank you, The Mourning Bride. And the actual quote is, heaven has no rage like love to hatred turned, nor hell a fury like a woman scorned. So if we think about that for a moment, when someone's heaven When we move from a position of love to hate, oh, heaven just goes, oh, like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the idea being that the anger of a woman scorned, and in that parlance of that time, was if she had been rejected, if she had been turned away, if she had been betrayed. So that scorn feeling is that anger, that deep, deep rage. That for all of us, at some point, possibly, is that core wound that we feel when we get our first experience of feeling separate, rejected by our caregiver, abandoned by God, perhaps. It's a wound. It's a big old painful thing. And when we hurt, we get angry. Or most of us do. If we think about the instinctual part of that, we think about, I'll just tell you a very quick story. That being in fear, when we're scared or feeling vulnerable, we can get angry and we can get snappy. What came to mind around this was I used to have a dog. He was a Jack Russell mix. And he screamed like a banshee when he had to get his nails trimmed. So this, it was an embarrassment. I mean, every time I took him in to get his nails done, they would take him all the way to the farthest reaches of the back of the veterinary office because people sitting in the waiting room would hear him just go off, and they thought he was being tortured. But in his little dog brain, his instinctive said, something is going to happen to me. I'm going to get violent. I'm going to bite. I'm going to scratch. Have you ever tried to trim nails on a cat? Same thing. We lash out in anger, right? So how do we honor the anger while still staying open in our hearts? It sounds like a paradox. It sounds like a thing that just we can't hold the two things together. We actually can. We can't hold love and hate in the same energetic thing. But we can hold love and anger. So we'll get a little bit more around that in a minute. We know, of course, we accept and we understand all our emotions are necessary. All of them are, we have them for a reason, for part of our expression. But we also know through our metaphysical teachings that every emotion has an energetic vibration to it. And so if we apply that to, where do I want to direct it? Where do I want to direct this like a whoosh sometimes? If you've ever experienced that, when something just trips your trigger, and it's like, whoa, there's a lot of energy behind that, is there not? Right? We know that our emotions also are highly influential in what we manifest. It's not just the words that we speak. It's not our affirmative prayers. It's not standing and saying an affirmation, this is what I know to be so. It's what are we given the juice? Where's the juice coming from? So whether it is overflowing love and gratitude or whether it is just rageful hate, that energy is taken into the law, and the law recognizes the energy more than the words. Yes, indeed. Can I get an amen? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. So here's the thing. What is the, there's three ways of looking at this that we can use anger as like an inner alarm system. When it comes up, our first thing is to suppress it. And there's a lot of wisdom in that, to not just fly off the handle and say the first thing at the top of your head, but to really concentrate and look at it as a signal that something is amiss. And our tendency or our practice has been, or our conditioning is, I'm going to reason my way out of why I shouldn't be mad, instead of saying, what is this really about? So looking at it as an indicator of, oh, this is interesting. What's going on inside right now? Usually it is something that we hold dearly in a belief, in a perspective, in a worldview that has suddenly been challenged. Or the physical danger. Something has just happened and I got to react, I got to do something, I got to make sure I don't get hurt in this moment. Or my loved ones aren't getting hurt in this moment. Those are our natural, instinctive, reactive things that we do, necessary things to do. But to look inside and say, what is this telling me? You're going about your day and everything is going smoothly, and all of a sudden one little thing just tips you over the edge. It's like, take a moment, take that breath, take the pause to say, what is this about? What is this really about? That person who knows how to push my buttons, a family member, a friend, a boss, a colleague, whatever, instead of going through all of our gyrations to get ourselves into a protective mode and defend ourselves, we're going to keep repeating the pattern until we change and say, what is this really about? What is this really about? So we use anger as a messenger. The second way that we can look at anger is usually that, as I said already, a reaction to fear. We get snappy and irritable because we're uncomfortable. We feel vulnerable, either physically, emotionally, or otherwise. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna put my dukes up. I'm gonna get defensive, and I'm gonna be defensive against you. I'm gonna be offensive, maybe. I'm gonna be very offending if I'm feeling really, really scared. Our friend Thich Nhat Hanh says, if we divide reality into two camps, the violent and the nonviolent, and stand in one. Whoops, that's the wrong quote, sorry. That's not the one that I wanted to do with you first. The second one is of another Thich Nhat Hanh. Here we go. Anger is that. When a person's speech is full of anger, it is because he suffers deeply. Because he has so much suffering, he becomes full of bitterness. He is always ready to complain and blame others for his problems. This is why you find it very unpleasant to listen to him and you try to avoid him. So think about that. Those people in the world right now that we like to push against and we don't want to be around and we don't want to listen to them. Because all they do is blame and complain, and it's everybody else's fault, and they take no responsibility, and it's simply everybody else, I'm the victim. It is not fun to live under that kind of constant barrage of that. So anger is a defense mechanism for pain, to cover up the pain. There's a related method of that too, with anger that comes in when hopefully you have a really good friend who you trust enough to let them tell you the truth about yourself. You know what I'm talking about? That dear friend that says, can I point something out to you? Can I reflect something to you? It's that idea where, at least for me, if, as you heard in my introduction, as a recovering perfectionist who never could handle criticism of any kind, and was always hypervigilant to find it, when someone says to you, can I say something to you? And you go, or I do, I don't know about you, but I get real defensive. And it's that saying, the truth hurts, right? And there's a second part to that is the truth will set you free, but first it'll really tick you off, right? So being aware of that, and then we go within. What is that about? Why am I so, what that sentence, what hill am I willing to die on? Do I want to be so right that I'm going to make everybody else wrong? Okay, that's honest. That's honest, right? But we know that response is, then nobody really wants to play with you. You're no fun to play with when you want to be right all the time, right? So it's being able to be willing to look within, be willing to be willing, be willing to be willing to be willing, and take it a baby step at a time and breathe into that space. Say, what is this? Where did this come from? Because more than likely you're going to find a lifelong pattern in there somewhere that came from something very early on that was indeed a necessary protection device, a coping mechanism, right? So it is that willingness to go in there and look at it and heal it and say, does this even serve me anymore? Most likely not. Does it keep me from being that full free expression of the God within me? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, okay, then I'm willing to start repatterning. I'm willing to notice when I get that little thing that activates my defense mechanism. And is there something really, is the scale of my rage congruent with what just happened? Most of the time, not. But we have to be able to get in there and be gentle with it and allow it to come up to be healed. So anger, there was a woman named Sister Elizabeth Kenny. She was an Australian nurse in World War I. And back then, when they got nursed, when they got the title of a nurse, they got the title of sister. Because nursing was originally something that came through the nuns in the churches and so forth, took care of, so World War I. She was also the person who was kind of developed the precursor to what we now know as physical therapy. Because at that time in World War I, there was a lot of polio going around. Before the polio vaccine, she intuited and worked with patients to say, if we keep moving the joints, the muscles strengthening, so forth, instead of, the recommended thing at the time was you bind them, people, and make them solid and don't move. But we know now. So that's one of her claim to fame. But she had this great saying, and she said, he who angers you conquers you. Meaning, you're going to get angry, you're going to have a reaction, you're going to have a response. But if you hang on to that anger, and you keep nursing that resentment, and you keep hanging on to unforgiveness without doing anything about it, without having the conversation, without directly having a conversation with the person who ticked you off. Not to fight back, but to gain understanding. Because every time we stay in that, let's just say it, every time we stay in the news cycle, daily, that is intentionally designed to keep us in anger and division and all of those things, to keep us off balance, every time we stay engaged with that, we just keep giving our power to it. And so the important part of this, yes, I can be angry in this moment. I'm going to let myself be angry in this moment. And then I'm going to let it move on because I have better things to do with my love and my energy and my time. We all do in this time. It is so imperative that we are in knowing that the light will overcome the darkness, that the love will overcome the hate, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, those sound like great platitudes. There's nothing I can do about it. But actually, yes, there is. Because as I said when we began, we know our words have power, but we know our emotions fuel those words into what we manifest. And so our work right now is to take the anger, not allow it to go into hate, but hold the anger as, yes, this is a justifiable emotion right now. Especially right now when we feel that this, like my moral compass, my set of my integrity, when all of these things just keep getting crossed. My inherent love for humanity just keeps getting crossed. And that it's become acceptable to be cruel. Thank you for shaking your heads no in the back, because I don't, but you know what I'm saying. It's this push to keep normalizing division and strife and conflict and war and hate. But we know it only profits a few people for a short time. There are more of us, those seeking the light, seeking to be loved, seeking to be kind, seeking to be compassionately human and take care of each other, than the few that get all of the attention. And it's not easy work, as you know. But it is our work. It is our work. We are alive in this time for a very good reason. And I think that reason is to continue to just say, I am going to be the light, the light, the light. No matter what. Yes. It's not about rolling over and saying, oh, can't do anything about it, I'm helpless. No, you're not. Your words and your emotions have power. So using anger as a catalyst to move us. I think it's so important, and just, of course, I didn't know that the tithe was going to go to the shelter today. But part of that first healing in that kind of a situation of domestic violence is when the victim finally stands up with enough self-love and anger to say, no more. I'm not doing this anymore. And across the spectrum, in recovery, in everything else, when we reach that point where it isn't working, and something called grace, because we were willing to open up to it, says, now I have something to work with. Take that anger, write a letter, write a song, make art, dance, create, speak up, whatever that is. Let it motivate you, not from a place of hate. Let the anger open the door so that love can help you walk through. Does that make sense? Something has to shift. We can affirm and sit on our yoga mats all day long and say, I am love, I know light, I know love, I know light, but words without action, words without something underneath them mean nothing. We can say that we love all of humankind, but if we are saying it and affirming it while we are holding hate for anybody else, we're just saying the words. Until we can focus that and focus ourselves and say, I refuse to go there. I refuse to go into hate, because if I believe in the God that I say I believe in, and I believe in love being the greatest power there is in the universe, then I better learn how to use it for good. So this other quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, and if you are not familiar, he has a book simply called Anger. It is powerful. He even suggests that we treat anger like a small child, nurture what pain needs to be addressed. Start there. Start by holding your anger gently and tenderly, not pushing it away, not getting rid of it, saying this is a bad emotion, but becoming friends with it, becoming familiar with what it is here to tell you. So this quote, if we divide reality into two camps, the violent and the nonviolent, and stand in one camp while attacking the other, the world will never have peace. We will always blame and condemn those we feel are responsible for wars and social injustice without recognizing the degree of violence in ourselves. We must work on ourselves and also with those who we condemn if we want to have real impact. It has to start with us. If throughout the day we are cursing ourselves, being angry at ourselves for making a mistake, we got to address that violence first. Mistakes mean we're human. And mistakes are the only way we learn. But if we are constantly recovering perfectionist, if we are constantly doing this, I didn't do it right, I'm never going to get it right. There's something wrong with me. I shoulda, woulda, coulda. And we keep ourselves from forgiveness. We keep holding ourselves in resentment. We are never going to solve the macro of the micro that's happening. Does that make sense? And as I said, we know, and most of you in this room, I know that. You know it's not easy work to look at that, to go within and say, what is this about? Oh, wow. Here I am all these decades later looking at the way that I treated people because I was unaware, because I was in such a defensive posture trying to protect my heart that all I could do was lash out. And it wasn't in a violent way, but it was whatever, passive-aggressive, self-sabotage, pulling away from people that loved me. Because the belief was if I didn't connect with anybody, I wouldn't get hurt. And oh, what a difference many years of inner work and acceptance. And it had to begin with the very thing, the number one thing that we start with in this teaching. God is all there is. The number two thing, God is expressing in and through and as me. Which must mean I'm okay right from the get-go. There must be something okay with me. So let's start there. So lean into asking. The next time you get that little, whatever it might be, and right now it's like many times a day, and I just kind of go, okay, what do I want to do with this in this moment? Who do I want to be in this moment? Do I want to further the violence? Or do I want to show up as love? Explore it. Go with it. Go gently. Treat it like a newborn. Treat it like a toddler. The innocence of that anger is natural to being human. And the last thing, after we take it into using anger as a productive thing, if none of that works, cuss. I say this because, and this is just what the song that I'm going to end with, but there's actually been studies done, scientific research done about the benefits of dropping the occasional F-bomb. Not as a regular part of your language, but you think about how effective it is when a toddler drops an F-bomb for the first time. It gets everybody's attention, does it not? So people don't know you as somebody that cusses. It can be an effective tool, and it's, if you're comfortable with it. But there are benefits, physical benefits. It's a stress reliever. It can be a defense mechanism. Yes, it can be a coping skill. But there's also studies done that say, well, like if you're doing a very strenuous physical workout, and you're like kind of in that last mile of the marathon, cussing actually motivates what you're telling your brain to move you to stretch a little bit more, push a little bit more, get through the end. So, a definition of blasphemy. There was a guy in his kitchen, and he stubbed his toe on the corner of the cabinet, and he let a long stream of expletives go. And then he stopped, and he looked up to the ceiling, and he said, sorry, God. And this gentle whisper came back, and it said, my son, I created the universe, I created black holes, quantum physics, and teenagers. So please trust me when I say that your vocabulary is barely a blip on my radar.